Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well, and it's time for another edition of Let's Argue, where I go on the internet, I take your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, your tough questions, we respond to the best ones, and yeah, that's what we're gonna do. That's what is about to happen. Ha-ha! Your Twitch chat is a toxic environment that feels like a very unwelcoming place for some people to participate in. What? People. Me and the mods are very good about banning anybody who is hateful, bigoted, racist, sexist, saying any kind of slurs or anything like that, not only with just like human moderation, but like, you know, automatic moderation as well. We've booted quite a few toxic people from chat. I know that chat can be a little overboard when it comes to like, you know, hating on certain songs and stuff like that, but I mean, it's a super opinionated music chat. Plus, just generally, Twitch chats are kind of dogpile-y. I don't really know what is so special about my chat that you find it particularly annoying or difficult to participate in. It's also very busy a lot of the time. There's not really a whole lot to participate in here and there because everybody's just kind of like throwing messages on top of each other and it's moving so fast. Like, I don't know, it's really just a shit show. There's not so much participation that can go on when you have like hundreds of people just throwing messages on top of each other and it's moving at the speed of light. Successful musicians should not get into acting. There's only so many movies that get made, so there's a limited number of roles out there. So any job taken by an established celebrity who just wants to add actor to their Wikipedia page is a job taken away from someone more dedicated to acting, more reliant on the pay, who would probably give a better performance anyway. Meanwhile, there's no limit to how much music can be made, so they should just stick with that. This is kind of an interesting premise that I don't think I entirely agree with for a host of different reasons. Number one being that there's some movies and some movie franchises that are created simply with the understanding like, hey, this person's who's really famous, be it them a musician or a whatever, you know, for whatever reason they're famous before the film is getting made, they're going to be in the movie. And, you know, they may formulate that entire rollout and that whole creation of that film just for that one fucking person, just to get them in the movie. And if that person ends up being a musician, I guess so be it. On top of it, we've already had so many examples in the past of successful musician to actor crossovers and great movies made as a result. I mean, Jesus Christ, fucking Friday? Are you kidding me? Friday? Like, you would give up the classic film Friday just to be right on this point? I can't. I couldn't do it. And also, like, I could sort of see your point if you were making it in, say, the 1980s or the 1990s. But like in the current information age, the age of streaming, like there are more film projects now than there ever have fucking been. Like, of course, a studio like Fox, for example, is only going to drop a certain amount of films within a day. But like the landscape currently is so much more international than it used to be. There's more films and short films and, you know, film-like projects coming out on platforms like Netflix and stuff like that. Again, it sort of seems like there's a lot more independent film going on here and there. And while still there is a limit to how many roles are offered in that realm, it's way better now with the variety and access and just the sheer number of things that you could watch than it was in, like, let's say when I was in college in fucking 2004. So yeah, I don't really agree. I don't entirely agree. You criticized Anthony Kiedis for his lyrics on the latest Peps album. The Peps. But we all know if Ride were shouting that aquatic mouth dance gibberish, you'd give it a pass. Like, honestly, Ride would be saying, and has said, way crazier fucking shit than aquatic mouth dance. Like, if Ride had nothing to say on a track other than aquatic mouth dance over a chorus, I think that would be a little like, you know, him under-delivering a little bit, you know? Or if he literally said like aquatic mouth dance, I would expect there to be some kind of like literal direct implication in lyrics with that hook or prior or after in the song that, like, you know, basically states like, I'm talking about pissing in your mouth or something. I think if Death Grips were on some aquatic mouth dance shit, that would be pretty interesting. It would definitely play out differently than it would on a Red Hot Chili Peppers record, that's for sure. I could beat you in Minecraft PvP. You're not gonna do shit. You're not gonna do shit, bitch. On a scale of 1 to 10, how many ska albums are there? That's a good question. I would say there's probably about 8. There may be another ska album released this year, and that would make it 9. Steven Tyler's screeches on Dream On and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing are fucking annoying. Yeah, especially on I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, where, I mean, that's one of the most overly sentimental and disgusting rock ballads of all time, and I fucking hate it, even without the screeching. On Dream On, I actually don't mind the screeching that much, honestly. Like, I feel like it's pretty intense peak moment of the track, but yeah, on I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. I want to close my eyes and I don't want to miss a thing, 'cause I just miss you, babe. With the recent release of FX's Pistols series, I've seen a lot of people posting online that Nevermind the Bollocks was never really that good of an album. I always felt that it was considered a classic album, but it seems the consensus has possibly shifted these days. I'm not sure if I'm in the minority, but I think it's a classic. Sure, it's not the greatest punk album of all time, and perhaps the talents of the band at that specific time could be questioned, but in my opinion, it is a killer start to finish, and its influence is undeniable, which I guess is why Disney has invested so much money into a biopic about a band that only produced one record. Nevermind the Bollocks is undeniably an influential record. It is an early and classic UK punk record. I just kind of see the album not in the same league exactly, because the musicianship on this other one is better, but it's kind of in the same league as like the debut Clash record, in my opinion. It's just very basic, very meat and potatoes, old school punk rock, which, you know, has its time, has its place. As far as listening to alternative music or any kind of underground music, it's kind of like Training Wheels level shit. Like, it's only a few years that I think you kind of get out of a record like that, if you're lucky, before how decent it is kind of wears off and the novelty of it is gone, and you kind of move on to harder stuff, better written stuff. It is an album, as far as punk rock goes, that's really easy to get over very quickly, in my opinion, because there's just superior bands and albums out there. Taylor Swift's reputation goes from a 4 out of 10 project to an 8 out of 10 once you learn more about the context of the record. First off, I don't agree, because when I reviewed it, I was aware of the context of the record, unless there's some extra special secret context that I was not aware of. I will say this to kind of argue against this point. There is no record that goes, that doubles its score, just on context alone. There's not. That's gotta be some big spicy meatball of context. Okay, hear me out on this. You know the rumored JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown album that may be coming out this year? How insane would a cover of Feel Good Inc. be on that album? Like Danny Brown could... No, I don't vibe with this, no. Are you somehow connected to this album and you're floating this right now to kind of see, like, you know, just test the waters or something? That is an insane fucking idea. So insane it just might work, but I don't know if I want to take the risk. If we could get one more Weird Al Yankovic parody album, are there any particular songs you'd like him to attempt, so on and so forth? Bad Guy, or like, you know, Driver's License, Olivia Rodrigo, one of those two. 80s is its own distinct genre, whereas 60s, 70s, 90s, etc. could mean many things. When an artist says they're doing an 80s sound, we have a good idea of the meaning. I don't know. I think that also applies to 60s. Like when you're like, oh, 60s music. Like all of a sudden, like people think fucking hippies and psychedelic shit and so on and so forth. Like you say 60s, like, yeah. I mean, point taken on like the 70s, but when people say something sounds 60s, there's a pretty like clear aesthetic and stylistic idea that they have in their minds, you know, just like when you say something, oh, this sounds 80s, like something can sound 60s in a very similar way. The more people on the cover of a Kendrick album, the better it is. What about Section 80? That album has no people on that album. And that's one of Kendrick's more solid projects. Better than Damn, in my opinion. Where's the people? There's no people. There's no people on it, right? Right, there's no people on it? No, there's no people on that. There's no artists that make party music anymore. I just listened to the new Dom Dalla track, and it's great. It's fantastic, and it's totally a freaking party track. What are you talking about? What is your central premise here? DJs have been played the same song since the 2000s. There's a few artists with some hits that fit a mainly mainstream dance floor. Bruno Mars, Cardi B, Dua Lipa. But for the most part, as a DJ, I'm left wanting more from these superstars. Is there a difference between a dance record and a party record? I don't know. I mean... you could party to anything, honestly. You could party to MF Doom if you want. You could kind of party to anything. You know, it doesn't have to be whatever you think party music is. When artists release multiple singles, it's a massive detriment to the album listening experience. Massive! Sometimes releasing multiple singles before the release of an album, especially if the band is new and still kind of getting out there, is sort of a necessity because it drives more potential for people to get into the band. Obviously, a group or an artist as large as Kendrick or Drake, for example, don't need to do a whole lot of singles before the release of a record because people are going to be waiting for that shit to drop anyway. Once the album is 10 years old, presuming anybody even wants to listen to it at that point, does it really even matter how many songs were or weren't singles? Would you even be able to tell? Hot take, if you've never been moved to tears by a song before, you don't love music. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that because, you know, I feel like crying to music or sort of understanding and identifying with music that could potentially make you cry or move you to tears is sort of like something that you kind of learn or you gain with maturity. There's a lot of ways to love and enjoy music. It doesn't just need to be, oh, I'm crying to it, which I think kind of adds to this overall fetishization of sadness and pain, that like, you know, being sad or being sad in response to something is more legitimate than being happy or being happy in response to something, which is not true. Why don't you call us your needle drops anymore? Because I have a firm distaste for most things stan culture, and also that includes naming the horde of people that follow you a cute little name. I don't know. And also I think needle drops is kind of cringe. It doesn't really roll off the tongue. I think monsters or barbs or the beehive is kind of cute, you know what I mean? But my needle drops is kind of weird and awkward, you know what I mean? Like I feel like look, I will give into the demand to call you guys something if we can come up with a better name. We need a better name than needle drops. And yeah, those are going to be my thoughts, my opinions, my arguments for this episode of Let's Argue. You're the best. Anthony Fantano. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Let's argue forever.